welcome everyone. Looking forward to today. Um, we do have, I wanted to mention, thank you, Paul, the December 2nd commercial marketplace. We're going to do it on Zoom. It's part of our global marketplace series where we reach out to different cities and places across the country to talk about what real estate opportunities they have available in their markets and share information and properties. So December 2nd is going to be a group of different places. It's going to be Miami, Orlando, and San Juan, Puerto Rico. So we're looking forward to partnering with those realtor associations and CCIM chapters and districts in the different areas within Miami, Orlando, and Puerto Rico. Really looking forward to that. December 2nd, 9 a.m. Should last about 90 minutes or so. We'll have a brief introductory talk about about each market, and then we will do a haves and wants. Hopefully, Josh is available to be the MC of the haves and wants session, and we'll try to trade some information and do some deals. So we're looking forward to December 2nd, 9 a.m. for the global haves and wants marketplace session. So thanks.
Well, let's jump right in here. Since Eileen and I have spoken with Amit recently, we'll get the ball rolling, and then everyone else up here on the stage or anyone else that has questions can also get involved and find out more from Amit about his perspective and what he's been doing both in South Florida and looking to do around the country. Amit, why don't you tell us a little bit briefly about yourself and your real estate background?
Sure. Thanks, everyone. Great to be here. My name is Amit Egan Datwani. I'm founder and chief consultant of Global Consulting Organization. Global Consulting Organization is a project starting firm that's visioning, branding, and marketing the neighborhoods, communities, and cities of the future. So some of you may be wondering, what is a project starter? Understandably so. As far as I know, it doesn't really exist. As of now, it's officially been launched as a new category in the real estate development cycle. As many of you know, on traditional real estate development projects, we have project financiers, project developers, and project managers. What we're doing is creating this new niche that we're calling project starting, where we come in and get involved very actively in the beginning stages of a project, where we help to set a vision, create a brand, and develop a comprehensive marketing strategy for real estate development projects. On the personal side, I'll share that my family and I, we just moved down to South Florida in March of this year. It's really refreshing to be living down here, especially in the month of November. This past week, my wife, my son, and I, we were on the beach. And for us being New Yorkers, that was very unique to experience in the month of November. I've been traveling down here actually for the past 3.5 years, building up a bridge between our investors who are based in New York and deal flow based in South Florida. And for about 2.5 years, I've been negotiating with my wife and son to move down here. And finally, in the middle of the pandemic, they agreed. So that was a little bit of our silver lining coming out of the cycle, was that my wife and son finally agreed to move down to South Florida, and they actually love it. So that's me in a nutshell, and open up the floor right now to any questions.
Well, tell us a little bit. You had, when I spoke with you, tell us about Chef Ramsay and the project that you'd worked on. And it's in South Florida, right, where Chef Ramsay took some space, and about that client and kind of what the vision was for that whole project.
Sure. So I used to do a lot of work as a real estate broker. and I primarily operated in the off-market world. Deal sizes for us range anywhere from 5 million up to 150 million or so. And I remember in 2019, I had been working on 12 off-market deals at the time, and very solid deals, great locations. But the biggest issue was that we had great buyers, we had very able and willing sellers, but the biggest challenge that we faced was the delta in the price that buyers wanted to pay and sellers wanted to sell for. Anywhere from 5 to 25% was the delta. And I literally was so frustrated, that I had 12 fantastic deals, been traveling down to South Florida, building up this amazing pipeline, and we couldn't close anything. So, long story short, decided to start a new platform that consists of visioning, branding, and marketing. And out of those 12 deals, selected one of them to pursue. That was the project, Paul, that you just mentioned. It was called the Yukon Miami in the exclusive South of Fifth neighborhood here in South Beach in Miami. And what I did was I put together a presentation for my colleague who I partnered with, as well as the ownership, that ended up in the Real Deal several times, Forbes, Profile Miami, and a lot of other notable publications. The building ultimately did receive the asking price of $45 million. The building also set a record for rent in the state of Florida, where we received a rent of $92 a square foot. And then this past summer, it was announced that Chef Gordon Ramsay was going to open up a concept called Lucky Cat. So in devising the vision for the future of the property, we showed the potential of the restaurant space and really activating it so that it was more in line with some of the concepts that are down in the neighborhood. The most notable ones are Milos, Joe's Stone Crab, and Carbone. Carbone, as some of you may know, has, I think, like a 2-3 month waiting list. Ideally, Chef Gordon Ramsay's concept's going to be as successful. So as we've now achieved this success with this platform, what we're doing now is taking it to a whole new level. This platform is not really just meant for office buildings. It's about really taking live, work, play projects to a whole new level. Some of the projects that we're now in discussion on, I can't disclose exact details as of yet, but I'm going to give a little bit of a high level description. One property is a 200 plus acre golf course. And what we've pitched the owner on is kind of creating this 21st century single family home community of the future, where we're integrating an urban and a suburban feel so that individuals and families that live in the suburbs but want a little bit more of a city type experience can come here and enjoy a really dynamic life. Another project, for example, that we're also in discussion on is a shopping center. A beautiful, beautiful location. But if you go to the shopping center today, I mean, you're ready to just like leave the next minute because it's from the 1980s. It really hasn't been pushed anywhere near the 21st century. And what we've pitched the owner on is building and creating like a mini city concept. Different types of uses will be residential, office, hotel, and a really interesting dynamic public plaza experience. In addition to those projects, we're also in discussion on kind of a really blank canvas type projects where it's just bare pieces of land, anywhere from 10 to 20 acres, where a developer can develop over 1 million square feet, multiple uses. And again, here's where we've brought in our dynamic live, work, play community concept to envision a 15-minute city of the future. So in summary, what we've done is we've taken the pilot project that Paul had inquired about, and now we're taking it to a whole new level.
Great. I'm going to ask one more question, then I'm going to bring in Michael and some of the other leaders here. You mentioned golf courses, and you mentioned vacant land, and we also talked about malls and about retail spaces. What other opportunities do you see? Where do you see the most value as far as repositioning or redeveloping?
So, two ideas come to mind, and they speak right directly to what I was just talking about. Number one is every single client that we're talking about today, whether it's a client that specifically focuses on residential, office, or retail, everyone is asking us, how do we create this to be more of an experience? And what we're constantly speaking to clients about is that you've got to step back a little bit and not develop the way you've developed over the past 20, 30, 40 years. You've got to look at this from more of an experiential perspective and think about, are there other ways that we can introduce or integrate different types of uses to make our property, whatever it is, more of a destination to really get people out of their homes. And it's a very appropriate discussion for the times, because of we all know what we've gone through in the past 18 months, and everything that we're now talking about and we're designing is all about bringing people out of their homes and out into a public plaza, out into nature, or out into stores, and then figuring out how is it that we can integrate all those uses together to create something very unique and interesting.
Hey, Amit, this is Michael Henton. Listen, this visionary community of the future, that's a big, lofty goal. So a lot of us on this group are more down in the trenches. We're agents. You keep mentioning clients. Give us a quick, who is your ideal client? Are you talking about landowners, people who own property that is difficult to sell? Or are you talking about urban, um, suburban? What's your ideal client that you're looking that we can do business with you on?
Sure. So right now, a typical client for us is an ultra high net worth individual that owns land, that is paying taxes on the land and not making any money, very simply put. So they call us in and we talk with them about figuring out how is it that we can activate the land, and most importantly, how is it that you can start making money on it. This type of individual, for the most part, is not an active developer, him or herself. The individual is more of an active investor, and they've held this land for, let's say, 10 or 20 years, bought it at an amazing price. It's now gone up in value, but they don't want to sell it. So some of our processes that we also work on is then maybe even introducing a co-development partner that can come in and be the one that actually builds out the vision that we create.
I was just going to ask you, are you looking for joint development? Do you do land leases to another developer? What kind of partnerships do you set up?
Could be all of the above. It really depends on the project, and most importantly, what we look at is, frankly, the personality of the individual. Meaning, look, a lot of these individuals are masters of their universe. They command billions of dollars in capital, and they're very controlling in terms of how they want to set up deals and partnership structures. So, based on that, we then come in and figure out what is the right fit from a personality perspective, and then go down that road of, okay, from a skills set perspective, what is the type of individual or company that's going to be the right fit to bring on to execute the vision.
Great. So you mentioned vision and marketing. What else do you bring to the table? I can talk about your team, because I can only imagine you've got to have architects, you've got to have designers. I mean, a pretty deep bench there to do this kind of visionary product. How big is your team, and who else do you work with?
Sure. So we're also in the process of creating a platform which we call the GCO Collective. The GCO Collective is a curated group of best in class professionals that we set up partnerships with for the purpose of collaborating with us on these projects. I like to look at our team as kind of like our Starfleet. If anyone has watched Star Trek, the Starfleet was really the global peacekeepers, and they were the ones that went around and also kind of discovered new forms of civilization. So I kind of look at what we're doing as we may not be discovering new forms of civilization, but we're creating new ways to live on this planet. And to speak more directly to your question, we partner with all types of creatives, all types of professionals in the real estate industry as well as outside the real estate industry. One of my ideas that I share with clients is that it's important to also bring in creatives that come in with an outsider's perspective. A lot of the professionals that we partner with who have decades and decades of experience that have done billions and billions of dollars of projects, many times some of our best solutions come from those that are not in the industry because they look at things from a very, very different perspective. And I really like bringing in creative individuals that look at different types of problems in multiple industries because that's where I see the greatest solutions come from.
Amazing. A couple of weeks ago, we had a group that partners with retailers and they bring in artists. So I can only imagine that you've got, like public space and art component because we all know what art brings to foot traffic in communities and helps build that foundation. So what kind of
We
creative people are we talking about?
Sure. So I'm glad you brought that up. And one of the ideas with our artists is so when we're working on the visioning process, like we're in discussion right now with an owner, and what we're discussing is that your typical process in a project would be where the architect does his or her rendering kind of in a vacuum by him or herself, and then brings it to the table. The developer or the owner then brings it to the engineer, sometimes the construction management team. And this is not all the time, but sometimes the engineer and the construction manager say, "Are you kidding me? Like, how do you expect us to build this?" And then what happens is the architect has to start redrawing the drawings and starting from scratch. So I'm now telling you the major pain point here. The major pain point is that not only does that process end up costing a lot more money, but there's an emotional toll that no one really talks about. But I can tell you, the owners, what happens is the owners get really, really frustrated. And what happens as that frustration level grows, and as you get further down the development cycle or the initial stages of that development, that individual who's making the decision starts making creative decisions from a financial perspective. And yes, I understand all our projects have to be profitable and you have to have a very measured and logical approach. But in making creative decisions based on numbers, you are going to kill the creative vision. So, what we propose to our clients is that we have created a concept. We call it a unified creative vision. A unified creative vision is something that we create with our entire team that ideally seeks to get all the stakeholders united around a unified vision that we can take forward into the project. And what we're trying to do, and this is quite an effort, and it's not ever going to be perfect, but I believe it's definitely an advance to the way the development cycle sits as of today, is that we try and bring in all the stakeholders to that creative process. Just 2 days ago, that engineer brought up an amazing piece of insight to a creative process we're going through right now on a project that easily could have saved 50 grand plus, if not more. And the most important part, probably 6 months in that creative stage. So by bringing together all the professionals, seeking out opinions without any ego, that's another key part, and ensuring that everyone's giving their opinion, that it helps to advance a project forward. I believe what we're doing with this solution is taking the built environment and advancing it maybe 5 to 10 years uh, faster than what it could have been. What I mean by that is if you have a sole architect or an architecture team that is creating a future vision for a project, let's say he or she is projecting 7 years out, and they're not taking the input of a best in class team with multiple creative perspectives, They're going to create what they think is best and what they know. What I'm saying here is that with our solution, what we feel we're doing is advancing that whole cycle where we're taking the opinion of multiple parties. Again, no ego here, no ego, multiple parties taking their opinions, factoring them into the creative vision, creating something conceptually. And to go back to your question, also using artists who are not, let's say, typical architects or people who do renderings, but are sketching by hand. It's an intense creative process where we then take all that and bring it to the architect. So the architect is then getting, rather than a blank canvas, the architect is getting a vision that may already give them, let's say, 25 new ideas they would have never thought of. So imagine starting from that place where you have 25 brand new ideas, and then you take your architectural know-how and then advance that. So based on that solution and that process that we're now creating, and most importantly, bringing in, sorry I'm repeating this, but it's so important, bringing in all these creatives without ego, it really helps to create an amazing creative solution. We did part of this on the pilot project that I was talking about earlier, and we had fantastic results. And I can tell you now in the initial stages of these discussions, it's amazing how far we've come just in 6 months of talking about these projects, that it's really going to be exciting to see some of these come to life 2030 and beyond.
Wow.
Yeah, Amit, it's Eileen here. Um, I just want to tell everybody I've known Amit for quite a while, and he is such a creative professional, generous with his information, and always wanting not just to help clients, but also students. I met him at FIU when I was a faculty there, and I still am an adjunct, but he is amazing. And my background in brokerage and in development and redevelopment, working for companies like Cortellis that are very well known here and throughout the state of Florida. What you're doing is critically important, because what you're doing is you're making everybody do this upfront as compared to throughout, and you're really saving time and money and just accelerating the whole process. So really appreciate what you're doing, and I love your phrase about making spaces places, and really thinking about the effect. And using the brokerage community like you're doing today, because we know the market, we know what's there, and then when we come together, like you say, with your collective creativity, it's just a win-win. So really, thanks. Very excited about what you're doing.
I want to
Thank you
bring
for that,
in
Ali.
Stephen and Tamika. Thinking back to C5, when we saw some really progressive presentations, particularly the first presentation at the conference, what were some of the concepts there at C5 that you remember that really brought real estate into the future? Do you have any of those thoughts, Tamika or Stephen? We some of the concepts there were really revolving around the future of retail, and where retail can go, including sort of mobile retail and rethinking restaurants and of course kitchens. Do you have anything, Stephen?
Well, I think some of what we heard at C5, and also some of the things we've heard from people we've talked with here at the NAR conference in San Diego this week. There's a lot of adaptive reuse, redevelopment of like the Sears, Kmart, big box retailers, and people working with those projects to understand, creatively understand what those redevelopment projects could look like, or repurposing adaptive reuse projects could look like going forward, as well as one gentleman I ran into from San Antonio. He was explaining how, I don't know, most people don't know that San Antonio is a big Department of Defense and military base area, in addition to other things, and how he's been involved in redeveloping some surplus military base properties and this kind of thing. So do you, Amit, deal with adaptive reuse projects on that level across the country, or you just focus in New York and Miami? How do you look at those things?
Right now, the majority of our discussions are taking place in the state of Florida. However, our company is called Global Consulting Organization, and the desire and intent is definitely to be working on projects across the globe in the years ahead. About adaptive reuse, very much a big part of conversations today. And depending on the type of project that we're working on, many times I've advised clients that it may not be worth your time and money to just, let's say, renovate a certain type of project and find a new use. It may be better to completely raise a project and create something from scratch, because that for us gives us the most amount of creativity, and that definitely helps us to take a project forward into the future. One of the biggest concepts that we're in discussion on right now is how to create this notion of 15-minute cities. It's not necessarily limited to urban environments. I live, and my family and I, we live in a city called Boca Raton in South Florida. And I call this one of the best 15-minute cities, I think, in the country. Literally for or within 12 minutes, I think we can access 80 to 85% of our lifestyle needs. We're 12 minutes from a beach, 12 minutes from coffee, gas, supermarket, haircuts, shopping, restaurants, you name it. And you know what we do is we run through the basics of all of our lifestyle needs with an owner. And we look at all those basics, we look at all the categories, and then we come up with creative ways and how we can ensure that his or her community can ensure that it helps to provide those basics to the individuals that may choose to inhabit it in the future.
Hey, Amit. One more quick question. You mentioned, the creative side, the pain point, because I'm sure there's a balance somewhere in this between a creative side and the form and function required for an investor. I mean, like you said, they want to make money on their property. That's why they're investors. Talk about that pain point for a second. And then the rest of you out in the audience, if you're just joining us, Amit is with the uh, Global Consulting Organization. And if you've got questions, raise your hand and we'll bring you up on stage and join the conversation. I see some other people out there, Kevin and Joshua and Danny and Jennifer out there in the audience. So, Amit, talk about that pain point while we get some other people up here on the stage.
Sure thing. So, a couple of thoughts now with regards to a quote unquote pain point. So, the biggest challenge that we're now facing in our discussions is the resistance to change. The typical and traditional real estate development cycle that I talked about earlier on the call is something that's successful. It's something that has brought many of our clients a tremendous amount of wealth, and they've had a great degree of success. So it's not really, what we're creating is not really for an individual that is looking to kind of keep what they've done over the past 30 or 40 years and change slightly. That's really not going to work for the system that we're developing. It requires someone that really wants to challenge the traditional real estate development cycle and create something completely brand new. At the heart of everything that we do and we're focusing on is this notion of how is it that we can enhance the human experience. From a philosophical point of view, we talked a little bit earlier about how we're building a concept called the GCO Collective. When we're building our team, what we do is we try to find individuals and teams that are passionate about this idea of enhancing the human experience. And I was jokingly saying that I call our team the Starfleet, but if you look at the definition of what the Starfleet was, and I may be wrong here, but as far as I understood it was, they were kind of the peacekeepers on their quote unquote planet or on the Star Trek show. And what I envision for the future of the collective is that it's going to be comprised of the individuals and teams that can really help to answer the pain point and really bring these cutting edge solutions that are strictly focusing on taking humanity forward. And whenever we do find someone that is passionate about that and really understands that, look, this is about doing your life's work. I do whatever I can to bring that person onto our team.
Sure. Appreciate all this info. So let's ask people out here. Want to raise your hand? Come on up in the stage and some questions and join the conversation here. I see some people out there in
And
our audience, some regulars.
Steve,
Jennifer, go ahead, Paul.
yeah, Steve, and before we go, would you just give us another update on December 2nd? Anyone can email, if you want to email me at Paul at miamire.com, Paul, and I've been sending it out, but on December 2nd, November 17th, we have a book club with Kevin, and then December 2nd, we have our commercial marketplace with Puerto Rico and Orlando. And everybody's invited. If you're not in Miami, you can at least join us for the Zoom on December 2nd. So, Stephen, you want to talk about that before we go?
Yeah, just again, this great global networking, global marketplace that we've been doing this past year has been really successful. A lot of deals I think have been made, and a lot of good property availability and wants have been exchanged. So we encourage everybody to participate in this December 2nd event on Zoom with the Realtor Association of Puerto Rico and Orlando, hosted by Miami Commercial. Paul and his team have done a fabulous job putting together these events to get this global exchange going, and I think this is going to be another great one, December 2nd. So I hope everybody is available for that. If you need information, just email Paul at paul@miamire.com, and he can plug you into the Zoom invite. And we're really looking forward to that, and having Josh Cohn, our Masters of Ceremonies for the Global Marketplace, engaged again to run that Global Marketplace for us. So look forward to seeing everybody there. And thanks, Amit. We really appreciate you today going through your concept for the future of commercial real estate targeting 2030. And we wish you the best of luck with your business plan. And
Thank you
thanks
so
very
much.
much.
Hey, Paul, I want to thank you for allowing all this to happen. And a thought to keep in mind is as we go into 2030, sustainability and smart buildings really important. And so I think, Amit, what you're doing is great. You're right on spot with really pushing everyone to think about 2030 and beyond. Thank you.